We call his name every day at this time. He's John McMullen from 97.3 ESPN.com and today's pigskin.com, where he covers the league nationally. Let's take a look at the Eagles. I guess the big news today was there was no dancing around it, John. Halapulu Vaitai is the new right tackle.
Hopefully he's one of the names in the contest, so you can say it again. That was impressive.
Well, here, I've been just doing this all day. Anytime the Eagles' new starting right tackle,
Halapulu Vaitai,
is. I got Jen. So we recorded her update when she said that. We took that snippet and now we got that to fill in for me. But yes, Vaitai is now the right tackle. No dancing around it.
Yeah, although Jay Gruden still doesn't necessarily believe it because he was on a conference call with us, the Philadelphia area reporters, and he wasn't convinced that the Eagles were really going to go that route.
Really?
But he should be.
What did he say?
Yeah, he said, if they go that way, it's the general feeling of the CIA plausible deniability NFL head coaches have. They never think you're telling the truth. But Doug's telling the truth.
I mean, I don't know. It's not like the quarterback where you're changing your game plan, because maybe a little bit. Are they going to change the game plan a little bit because Vaitai is now there and not Lane Johnson?
Well, Doug claims no, but I can't imagine that they wouldn't. I don't believe that they wouldn't. They kind of realize they're going to have to give him help. And as I mentioned yesterday in studio on the show, you don't have to worry about that kind of thing with Lane Johnson. If Lane Johnson's your right tackle, you understand when you're game planning during the week, you don't have to worry about that position. You don't have to worry about chipping. He's just out on an island by himself, and you just move forward. They kind of understand it's going to be different now, and they're going to have to go about it a different way. Doug said he doesn't want to hamstring the kid. He wants to let him play, and he'll see how the game goes. But I think he understands he's going to need to give him some help.
The interesting thing to me is that Vaitai has not been active for any games, John. So if Lane Johnson was to get hurt in a game, they probably would have moved Alan Barbie to right tackle, right?
Or put Matt Tobin in as the swing tackle.
So is Vaitai ahead of Tobin on the right tackle? Because
now he is, yeah. I mean, on game day he wouldn't have been,
right.
But now he is. We talked about it. Hey, this kid wasn't off the third team throughout training camp in the preseason. As you mentioned, he was not active. He had not taken a first-team rep before today. So, this came out of nowhere. And that's why Ed Werder was the first to report it. And the Eagles had been talking the entire time that Barber was going to move out to right tackle. It was either going to be Sayamalo at first or then Wisniewski inserting at left guard. And then all of a sudden it changed. And I think the change has more to do with Barber in the way he was playing at left guard, and they didn't want to mess with that. But it's a gamble.
Well,
it really is.
You just brought up Sayamala, which is interesting because they don't want to move Alan Barbie to right tackle, but Sayamala was a third-round pick who they envisioned kind of starting at one point this year. What does that say for him and maybe his long-term future?
I don't know if it's long-term, but he was set back by the pec injury. If you remember, he was out of practice for a number of weeks, and I don't think he's completely 100% even now, even though he's a full go at practice. So I think that injury set him back. Long-term, they still have a lot of confidence in him. They think he's going to be a part of this offensive line. But certainly that injury set him back and put him out of this conversation for when Lane did eventually get suspended.
John McMullen's with us, 97.3 ESPN.com. Everything on the Eagles and Redskins matchup, you can find it over there Another storyline with this one is in Washington, where Doug Peterson talked about Desean Jackson. He said he could still run, he could still make plays. Jay Gruden on that conference call today, he kind of admitted that they got to get Jackson more involved. And then you hear the news that Jordan Reed, with the concussion today, possibly could be in trouble for the game. This could be an interesting day for Mr. Jackson, who is a free agent at the end of this year.
Yeah, and I think that excited a lot of Eagles fans because they remember sort of what Desean was when he was here. And let's face it, the Eagles still to this day excuse me, losing my voice. Sorry about that, Mike. To this day, they haven't been able to replace him, and I think that continues. And the problem with the Eagles is whether it's Jordan Matthews, Dorial Green-Beckham, Nelson Aguilar, they don't have a deep threat. They don't have a guy who can pop the top on the defense. And that continues. It's continued since the day Desean Jackson has left, whether or not Chip Kelly was here or Doug Peterson was here. It doesn't matter. They haven't been able to change that. Now, while I say that, Mike, understand this guy's 30 years old, and he's on a contract year. You got to do better than that. You can't go back to the future. You have to certainly bring a deep threat into this organization.
Right.
But you can't get hung up on Desean Jackson because of what he once was in Philadelphia.
Yeah, I mean, and he kind of seemed like he was open to coming back here. I mean, he didn't poo-poo it because Chip Kelly's not here anymore, and he was here under Andy, which Doug was here. So I'm sure he would be more than fine coming back to play for Doug Peterson. He probably knows the offense really well, but I can't imagine that Howie Roseman pulling the strings now would want to turn back the clock and go in that direction.
No, if you certainly, as I said, you want to improve that particular position, but there's no doubt you want to go younger. You want to have somebody who's, if you're going the free agency route, you want to have somebody who's 25 or 26 years old going on their second contract. You don't want a guy who's already 30 years old. And the fact that Desean still has that speed and it hasn't really left him, that's true. But also realize the type of player he is, and the fact that when it does leave him, when he loses a half step, this is not a refined route runner or a receiver that's going to beat you with his sort of veteran savvy. So I think when his game sort of starts to decline, you're going to see it fall off a cliff. And I think the Eagles are smart enough to realize it. I don't think that would be the way they would want to go.
Well, and you're seeing it with him. He had a big first week for Washington, but really hasn't done much in week 2, 3, 4, and 5 for that team. He had, 8 catches for 100 yards in week 1, and then since then, his targets have been way. But that's what Desean always kind of was a guy that 1 week will have 6 catches for 140 yards and 2 long touchdowns, and then he disappears for weeks. That's what should be concerning about this week, is this could be the week that he resurfaces.
Yeah, well, he's always had that mentality against the Eagles, but you also brought up that he had the anger towards Chip Kelly. It's not towards Doug Peterson. It's not towards this regime. So I think a little of that at least goes away. But the other thing with the Redskins, realize they have a ton of skill position talent. So they have to move the ball around. Jordan Reed is perhaps the best pass-catching tight end in football. So that concussion, that's huge to watch this week because if he's not available, that's obviously going to be a very big development for the Eagles. But Pierre Garçon, Jamison Crowder, a lot of good receivers on that team.
Yeah, Crowder concerns me a lot. Though, in that slot, he's a guy that the Redskins seem like they make a concerted effort to get the ball to him. He's a guy that really worries me in this Redskin offense, and I find the way they use their backs kind of interesting. Jones, a big power back, and then they bring Thompson in to catch passes. They seem like their offense much more fluid in the last couple of weeks. And Cousins, who played poorly, really poor the first 2 weeks, has settled in.
Yeah, I think he was pressing a little bit, and Jay Gruden kind of alluded to it. And I think even Cousins himself will admit to it. When you go from, let's face it, $600,000 a year as a fourth-round pick, and all of a sudden they put the franchise tag on you, and you're making $19.9 million. Well, that's the biggest raise in the world's recorded existence. So there are a lot of expectations on Kirk Cousins this year, and I think he struggled with it. And now from that point, he's kind of settled down a little bit and said, let's let the chips fall where they may. I'm just going to let it go. I'm not going to worry about that. And he's played better.
Hey, John McMullen's with us, 97.3. ESPN.com has all your Eagles, Redskins news and notes from today and all of the coverage to get you ready for this first time they're playing in the division. But, John, this is a pretty important game because when you look at wild card scenarios and all those kind of things, if the Eagles lose this game, now you're 0-2 in the conference. And you know, those are things that I think this year, the way everything's so jumbled, those wild cards, it could be, you know, picking up conference wins is something that's going to be very, very important.
Yeah, and always, obviously, division games are doubly important.
Absolutely.
And then you look at just where it is on the schedule, and Minnesota, another conference game, is next. And obviously that's a very good team. So if you don't stop one loss now, all of a sudden it could be 3 losses and the sky is falling. So I mentioned a little bit yesterday, I think this is a linchpin game for both teams. If they want to be that second team competing with Dallas in the NFC East, I think winning this game is very important for both sides.
John, let's take a look around the NFL as, of course, John covers the league nationally for today's pigskin.com. And if you're not reading John's stuff over there, make sure you follow him on Twitter at JFMcMullen, and you can get all his national NFL coverage every single day. And you write about Adam Gase, and we talked about this the other day, that, you know, there could be 8 or 9 coaching changes. And if you think about Miami really wouldn't let Gase get out of the building, and Philadelphia wanted Gase to stay in their building, and you think about you know, how he has really struggled, and you wonder if you're going to see a situation where a guy is in a one-and-done situation in Miami, the way that team has really struggled.
Yeah, they have. I don't think it's going to be that bad because Miami's not going to want to admit the mistake, but hey, it's pretty clear. He was the flavor of the month, and not just, as you mentioned, in Philadelphia. Miami, Cleveland wanted him first and foremost to be the head coach. And he chose the Dolphins, and obviously it hasn't gone very well. And you see some of the things. They cut 4 players this week. Weeks prior, he benched Byron Maxwell. And to me, it's a 38-year-old guy, Mike, who's trying to prove something. And if you think about it, as I mentioned in the article, coaches like Bill Belichick, Bruce Arians, Mike Zimmer, they don't have to deal with that. But some of the players look at Adam Gase as a peer, and he's got to prove something. And I don't think it's going too well in Miami. And I think for the Eagles, it's a situation where it's better to be lucky than good because they got the right coach for the wrong reason.
John, your thoughts? Kaepernick's going to get the start. Was it a football decision, number one, that he was not playing to begin with? I mean, many people thought Chip wanted to trade for him last year. Then he gets his hands on him, doesn't use him. Is Kaepernick, number one, a better fit? Will that help them out? And number two, was it strictly a football decision that Colin Kaepernick didn't play their first 4 games?
No, it wasn't. It was partially a health decision. That part of it I'll buy. So if you want to put that in the football column, I think that's fair because he had 3 off-season surgeries. And as I've mentioned, he's not the same guy physically. He's lost about 20 pounds. But his contract and the fact that if he got injured, all of a sudden his guarantee, which was about $14.7 million in 2017, so next year would have been fully guaranteed. And the 49ers wanted no part of that. They understood he's better than Blaine Gabbert, but until he agreed to renegotiate his deal, take that guaranteed money off the table, he wasn't going to get an opportunity. Now that he's going to agree to that, he's going to be the starting quarterback magically again. So it was completely contract related.
Yeah, it's a sad state too, where I'm not saying there'd be a playoff team with him, but this was the quarterback that we wanted to see if Chip's offense could excel under. Right? This is the guy. This is the prototype.
Yeah, he is. He's certainly better, and for some reason, some people tried to talk themselves out of it. Now, while I say that, I don't expect him to be successful at all.
But he's not the same player he was that took this team to the Super Bowl 4 years ago.
No, he's not. That's part of it, and part of it is the fact that that's just a depleted roster right now. There's not a lot of talent there. Jeremy Curley is your best receiver. That pretty much sums up what's going on in San Francisco. So I don't know who coach, quarterback. I don't know if Bill Walsh and Joe Montana could succeed with the rest of that roster San Francisco has. So I don't think it's going to work. But the only thing I'll say is Colin Kaepernick is certainly better than Blaine Gabbert.
Yeah, I think we can all agree, specifically in this offense. I mean, look, this was an offense that Chip brought to this league, and, he had some success with Foles for however that happened. We don't know, but, many people thought that he could even be better if he had that running option. He now has that option. Now, can Kaepernick put it together and become that player that was there? That's the problem. This team is just not very good around him, and I think that'll be interesting. But let me ask you then, do you think there will be more backlash now that Kaepernick's actually on the field and not just kneeling during the national anthem, that he's actually going to be a part of the game? Will that impact viewership and more sentiment of that direction?
Well, you would think it would, because let's face it. I mean, there were people upset by it, and from a football standpoint, he was irrelevant. He didn't even play. So, and they were still upset about it. Now he's going to be doing the same thing, and he's the starting quarterback of the San Francisco 49ers again. So I think, if anything, it'll increase some of that disdain for the people that are already trending in that direction. There's no doubt about that. But, look, from Chip Kelly's standpoint, the 49ers are so bad, you just got to do everything possible to sort of stem the bleeding on the field. It's not about any of that. It's trying desperately to be competitive on the football field.
All right. John has more on today's Eagles practice plus the NFL at todayspigskin.com. And for more on Eagles Redskins, you can check out 97.3 ESPN.com for all of John's Eagles coverage each and every day. Listen to him at this time on the Sports Bash. All right, John, we'll see you tomorrow. It's Jim Schwartz, really his first time talking since his defense did not play their best game against the Lions. So we'll have that tomorrow, plus Frank Reich as well. We appreciate it, pal.
Hey, thank you, Mike.